Joining me is Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti. He is a former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, a former Indian Ambassador to Thailand, who's also served as the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Indian Embassy in Israel in the late 1990s. Ambassador, welcome to DD India News Hour, and glad you could join us on the weekend in particular. Now, can the world breathe a little easy now that the ceasefire has indeed begun?
Well, for temporarily, yes, because that's the ceasefire will ensure that the displaced people in Gaza can go back to their homes and the hostages come back, which has been a pressure point domestically for the Netanyahu government. And as you know, that one very right-wing coalition partner has left the government because though not, they didn't have enough seats to bring down the Netanyahu government, who still enjoys a slim majority. There have been various, factors in this ceasefire agreement. One, of course, is fatigue and with the war, and then, of course, the coming of Trump, who threatened Hamas that if they don't do a deal, they'll be held to pay, etc., and things like that. So I think these are the factors, and that have, and Iran too is not particularly now in a position to help its proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. Hezbollah is under pressure also within southern Lebanon, and I think the Israelis, maybe after the ceasefire deal and some hostages are back, when temperatures cool down, they might also withdraw from southern Lebanon and hand it over to the Lebanese army. But these are all, we have to wait and see what will happen. But by and large, I think everybody has welcomed the ceasefire, and because the carnage that has happened, which began on October 7th, with the killing of 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians and unarmed, including women and children. It was a terrorist act of a very, horrendous proportion that the Hamas conducted against Israel. And the result, we all know what has happened, because Israel is not a country which will sit quietly back and absorb such attacks. And I think Hamas knew very well that what the consequences will be. But whatever reasons that they must have, rationally would have used to justify those attacks, of course, now has led to this situation where I think 50,000 Palestinians are dead. I don't know, millions are homeless. And so you can see that Palestinians also are welcoming the ceasefire. So there is a lot of fatigue with this war. Mm-hmm. That is one of the reasons why you see the ceasefire today.
Ambassador, the jury is still out on whether the ceasefire will indeed hold, and also whether Israel and the Hamas can progress to the subsequent phases or stages of the three-phase deal as is being described. But post-war management of Gaza remains a sticking point. Would Hamas, you think, will remain a part of the ruling dispensation in Gaza in one way or another?
I'm not so sure that Hamas will, but they might play a backroom role. But who will then, govern Gaza is the issue. Whether the Palestinian Authority will be brought in from the West Bank into Gaza to do a deal, or will there be some kind of a compromise and coalition with Hamas? It all depends, because backroom dealings will happen. There'll be pressures on both sides to sort of do a deal. And once Israel leaves Gaza, what kind of posture the IDF will maintain, whether inside Gaza or outside along the borders. The ceasefire, of course, includes withdrawal of the IDF. Mm-hmm. And then if that happens, then would IDF remain in position, adopt a posture along the border where they can go in quickly to do whatever they want if there is any further aggravation that they perceive from from Hamas. So I think Hamas may not be now the sole authority in Gaza, but we'll have to share that authority with perhaps the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank.
Right. Do you also see a Trump imprimatur on the deal? Did Trump prevail over Netanyahu? Did Trump succeed where Biden failed? And if so, is Trump rightly claiming credit for the deal?
Well, that's politics, and Trump is claiming credit for the deal, but ultimately it is still the Biden administration which was working out the nuts and bolts behind the scenes. And there was, of course, meetings in Qatar. Qatar has always been, punching above its weight in this matter with their sort of checkbook diplomacy on both sides, particularly one side, and so they were also part of this. So they provided a facilitation like they did, with the Taliban, and then both sides met in Doha, and they worked out and hashed out this deal. So I think we should now await the implementation, and I hope it goes on smoothly, and there are several phases, as you mentioned, and they can move on to the next phase, because it is a limited ceasefire in terms of the number of days. And if after that something happens, Israel will retain the right to again, attack Hamas or whatever they want to do in Gaza.
Ambassador, I have a couple of questions more to ask of you. One, zooming out, if you take a step back and look at the region of West Asia as a whole, Hamas has been dealt a heavy blow. Hezbollah has been subdued in Lebanon. Bashar al-Assad has fled Syria. Israel has extended its control over the Golan Heights, and Iran has been weakened like never before. Is it a new West Asia that Trump would be dealing with, and is that good or bad for the world?
Well, I think whatever you just mentioned would, if it leads to less provocation and less, conflict in the region, it would be welcomed by everybody. And I think when people can get back to their homes and get back to their work, and the economic hit that has been caused, including in Israel. After all, Israel is a country where everybody is a soldier, in the sense that they do compulsory military training, and they can be, many of the reservists, as they are called, when they go back to civilian life, were recalled to fight in this war. And so I think, and that hits the economy, because they leave their workplace and spend and go back to the IDF and get deployed in this war. So I think Israel too has suffered a lot in terms of its economy, and it needs to build back. So I think it should help everybody if temperatures are down, and but one never knows. In the Middle East, or as we say, the West Asian region is very volatile, and with so many unsolved and unresolved issues that continue since the Palestine mandate was given to the British and the Balfour Declaration of 1917.
And finally, Ambassador Chakrabarti, looking at these developments from a New Delhi perspective, what are India's stakes in West Asia? How would India react to the new Middle East that's shaping up right before our very own eyes?
Well, India is not really in backing one side or the other, in the sense of in the Middle East, and India basically is urging peace as it has done in Ukraine, for example. Because it is not in India's interest to have this region, which is a major supplier of oil, and with which India has huge economic interests, and millions of Indians work in the Gulf. So India is a huge stakeholder in the peace and prosperity of this region, because it helps India. And India's main focus India, we have a laser-like focus on economic development because that is where we want to go, take the country to higher levels of development in all domains. So I think, and disturbing, situations or instability in any region near India where we have a lot of stakes, or any region away from India where India has huge stakes in terms of economy and trade, is not good for us. So India should be welcoming this ceasefire wholeheartedly, and should do, and if possible, enable it to succeed.
All right. On that note, Ambassador Chakrabarti, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad, and also for making time for us on the weekend. Appreciate it.